Good evening, everyone. This is Arti Narayanan from ABS Marine Services Private Limited. On behalf of the team at Maritime SheEO, I welcome all of you to this live session on flexible work styles, the key to winning. Anna Kopp, an IT specialist, loves truth, authenticity, and all of us here are looking forward to hearing her unorthodox ideas on work styles. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear and see me well. Yeah, I'm Anna Kopp, work for Microsoft. I'm responsible in Germany for IT, so in a technical role. And on top of that, I'm also the branch manager for our HQ, which means that I'm responsible for the workplace just as much out of a building and a work rules perspective, as well as the technology. And last but not least, I'm also chairwoman in our women's network. And this is the reason why I'm so especially happy to speak to your community today. I'll get straight to the point. And yes, you said here in the short introduction that some of my ideas might be very out there. I hear this from customers a lot, but I think it's important to really be innovative in work styles to drive them forward, because the world is changing very fast. And that's my first point that I'm going to share with you today. Yeah. And that going back 1.5 years ago, this is Satya Nadella, who's the worldwide CEO of Microsoft and a wonderful, humble leader that's very loved by his whole organization. And he said, we saw 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months when the pandemic started, 1.5, almost 2 years ago. And if you're looking at a digital transformation that I painted here in yellow, now here's a little mental exercise for you to get moving. Is digital transformation a buzzword? If you take any magazine, like PC magazine or technological newspaper, etc., and you take a yellow marker and then you go through the pages, how many of them will not have digital transformation on them, or digitalization? Or possibly, if you want to be modern, just put 4.0 on something and then it sounds like you're in the latest age. Yeah, most pages will have a yellow marker on it because everyone talks about the digital transformation. And your business as well as my business are all on a journey of the workplace, which was accelerated in the last 2 years significantly. And this is why it's so important for me to talk about first the why, and then I'm going to tell you about our work modes and styles, and then I'm going to look to the future, what the future will look like, and then I'm looking forward to having some conversations and questions at the end with you. So it all starts with the mental attitude. When the winds of change start blowing, this is an old Chinese proverb, some build protective walls while others build windmills. So change is a chance. And many learned this in the last few years because they were forced to change. And you could either do it and see it as a positive thing that you're actually getting acceleration and leverage. And there is just no excuse for changing. So with that, I'm going to talk just about a few things here on our journey to workplace of trust. And first, I'm going to talk about why all this. So when I speak to customers, they all say, they start with, oh, we are different. Yeah. And I keep thinking, no, you're not. We're all on this journey to this workplace, to the future workplace. And usually when I speak to customers after about half an hour, we realize, no, we're all the same. And I've spoken to very small customers like small municipalities, and I've spoken to really large global corporations. They all say the same thing. We are different. And no, you're not. We are all the same. And we're on this journey, maybe at a different space in this journey. Now, I'm going to talk about, for the flexible workplace, a couple of universal truths on why I believe this is so important. We are all companies are currently really working hard to get talent. They call it the war for talent, which isn't an HR term. And it's out there. And I hear it also specifically from me as an IT person in technology. we are really scrambling to get all the talent we need for today and for our future. And when I speak to customers, that's one of the things, even if they say we are different, yeah, but you have this issue, right? And the customers say, yeah, war for talent. Okay, we have that joint in common. There's a few other things that we also have in common. And here I'm going to use my two hands because the one thing every customer, every industry, everyone I talk to really nods when I say this, is that everyone needs to do more with less. So that means, more marketing with less budgets, more IT with less resources. And it doesn't matter who you talk to, everyone nods and say, yeah, us too. We have to drive efficiencies. It's always about that 1 or 2% lever to reduce some cost and increase output, driving efficiency. And everyone has this, doing more with less. So when you've looked at all the different processes in your company, you have, the hardware you need, the software you need, you have the processes you need, you have the technicalities you need. And at the end of the day, the one thing you need is the right workforce. You need the best people, because that's where, when you fixed everything else, this is where the efficiency lies. And this is all of you here in your companies. You are the best, and you are the ones your companies need. That doesn't always mean that you are just the technical right person for it, but it could be, that you're the team player. As of me, for example, my team, I need people that have the same loyalty and passion for innovation, teamwork, having each other's back. And one other thing for me, the right people, is having different people. So I don't have everyone the same, but I need all ethnicities and men and women and a very different mix of introverts and extroverts, so that I have a running team with a lot of different and diverse talent. So I hope you're with me when I'm saying this is where you get the efficiency. And now it comes to the why and what this has to do with the workplace. Well, in a situation with war for talent, the people are going to go to the best employer. And today, the number one thing that people are asking for is flexibility, because we work a lot. We work many hours, and I'm pretty sure in your business, just like mine, we are all having exactly the same thing. We work a lot, and this is where, again, the customers say, "Yeah, okay, so we're not different there. We have that in common too. We all have to work a lot, but we also have a life." Young talent, new people coming in, are asking, what flexibility do you provide? This is what is expected from a modern workplace. And companies that are not prepared to go in the cloud and become more modern are seeing that they are starting to lose talent, because they go somewhere else where this flexibility, working from home, working at the hours that fits you, are provided. So with that, I'm going to talk about our journey to this workplace at Microsoft. We realized all of this in 2011, 2012. We're growing a lot, and we needed a lot of talent and new people, specifically coming from, I'm so sorry. Coming from university that we hire. And we were fighting, just like Google and Facebook and all the others, to get these great people on board with us. And one of the things we realized at the time was, well, as you see here, everyone had a laptop. Everyone could take their work home. And we said, you can work with the technology we have, and we are a cloud company, and we were early in the cloud. We can work from anywhere. So this is what we did. We established something called the Workplace of Trust and Work Hours of Trust, which is almost more important than the place, to allow employees to work from anywhere when they're most productive. This is a personal style, and let me explain that a bit. Everyone has their own work style. Some have children and have to take them to school in the morning. So they might be very early in the office. Someone else, I have a colleague in my team who is single, and he likes to exercise. So he usually comes in really late in the morning because he goes to the gym. But then he's the kind of person that loves just sitting till late in the evening and do his programming and program management. That's his work style. The difference between people is if you have a workplace and a work style of trust where people are allowed to work when it fits them in their model and fits them when they're most productive, the output is going to be much more competitive. So what happened at Microsoft just last year, Satya Nadella said, here's our workplace motto. And it has 6 words. And it's our whole principle. Provide as much flexibility as possible. That's all there is at Microsoft, as much flexibility as possible. Because we realize that this model of trust is what gives us a competitive edge. There's many things that you can think about here, how to do it and so on. And what we learned at the time, and this is another important point, 2013, we had the negotiations with Works Council and legal department and HR. Yes, this is going to be our working model, and we have a contract. And we said, employees, hey, you can work from anywhere at any time now, keeping to your work hours, but still, because of course, we're trying to still keep adapted to the, in Germany, normal 40-hour work week. But if that's morning or night or evening or, it doesn't really matter as long as the work gets done and the output is there. And we said, hey, feel free to be flexible. And what happened? Nothing happened. Because you can't just go and say, okay, workplace of trust, because trust has to be earned. And trust has to be worked up. So our managers in our company, they were pretty confused. How am I going to manage my team and make sure they do what they should be doing? And how can I prove that I'm managing my team? And what if someone doesn't do what they should? How do I do this? Help me. And of course, the employees went to their managers and said, how do I do this? So what happened was everyone just kept coming to the office and working as normal. So the most important thing for a workplace, a flexible workplace, is trust, and it takes time and change management to build that trust. And this building of trust goes both ways, both from the manager to trust their employees, but also for the employees to really trust their managers and get that working relationship. So what happened in our change management then? I'll tell you a bit about that in our journey. The change management where we focused on, and here comes an interesting point, was our performance system. So we have regular quarterly discussions with our managers on how it's going. And we set up a whole new structure with new check-in points and so on. And there's 3 pillars that we worked on and that we implemented about 2014-15. It's been in place now for 7 years, needed some tweaking. We have 3 pillars when we talk about performance, to move away from this, being on time, being punctual. I don't need punctual people. I need people who are self-motivated, self-driven, that self-organize, because that's, what helps a manager build trust. Okay, they organize themselves, they do their thing. I don't need to check if they are working or not because I see the results. And these 3 pillars is number 1, the output of someone's individual work. So my job, what's my job? What should I produce? And it doesn't matter if I'm in the HR department or finance and controlling, or if I'm in sales or marketing. It's pretty clear what I'm there to do. And of course, my output and my outcome should come. And this is what I talk to my manager about. Pillar number 1, my contribution. The second one, and this is interesting, building on others. Building on others to us means stealing ideas pretty much, taking ideas from others and implementing them in my own work environment within the company. In Germany, this was something that it was not a nice thing to do. And you could accuse someone of stealing your ideas. But recycling today is a pretty cool thing. And recycling of ideas in a company drives efficiency. Why reinvent the wheel if you have someone that's done something, a process, and end to end, really worked on it, and has the material to say, hey, here's something that you can do in your department to become more efficient too. So we found a way to find out how people are building on others. And the last part, if you're building on others, you're giving to others. So there's a give and take component of this. So your own contribution, what you give, and what you take, because you're supporting others to implement your ideas by sharing a lot. So how this works really technically is we have a tool for performance discussions, and your manager fills out your contribution part together with you. You say, this is what I contributed and this is what he saw. And then we have the given and the taking part, a tool where you can give perspectives on others. So you work with someone, you're either building on them or they are building on you, and then you nominate them for feedback, and you give feedback to each other on how the cooperation was and how well it worked, and so on, so that you can establish and assess how teamwork is going, because you get the feedback on how these teams or these people as representatives for their teams work together. This took us a couple of years to implement, but in the flexible workplace, if you don't move the conversation from the pure basics of attendance and when are people coming and leaving, but really talking about what's the outcome, what's the quality of the work, then it's going to take a long time to establish a flexible workplace, because the managers need help in getting to where they need to be with their teams. I need to coach them. How do I manage a team virtually? How do I assess them and give them the tools that they need to be able to do this? So I hope that makes sense so far. But in the end, it's about, as I said, the universal truths of doing more with less, the people. And here's the last point that's most important on this. And this is that we have noticed very clearly, if I don't do this and implement a great workplace with a lot of flexibility to get the talent that I need, which means having the processes, the performance system, but also the tools and the technology in place, if I don't do that, someone else will. Someone else will do that, and they are going to get the great talent. It's just a fact that we are seeing in today's world. And I think you are all very aware of in your country and how things are going in your industry and your workplace. The competition is hard for the great jobs. So of course, if your company does well, in the end, it also, as a very clear fact, it saves your workplace. So I'm going to look into the future here in a second, talk about the new normal. You probably heard this. Everyone's talking about the new normal, and it's still not really defined. The reason we really, really need it, and here comes a couple of interesting industry facts for you, and that is from the Fortune 500 companies that existed in 1955, it's a long time ago. Out of those companies, 89% are gone and no longer exist. So out of Fortune 500's 1955, 11% survived and all the others are gone. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories here from the industry before I take you through the workplace future visions we have, and then I'm happy to take questions. So you can start putting questions in the chat if you want to. I have a couple of sayings. The first one is Uber yourself before you get Kodak. Uber, Kodak, two different companies. Uber came very quickly. It's a multi-billion-dollar company. And when it comes to how many employees they have, I have to check now, but it's not that many. I remember when they had 100 employees and they were making their first billion. So the company as such is a pure outcome of digital transformation, because if you have a car and a mobile phone and you're in the cloud there, you can register as an Uber driver. So they don't have that many people employed at the Uber headquarters running the portal and payment and so on, but they have hundreds of millions of drivers. And they are, they say, I'm an Uber driver, so they're not employed, but they work for Uber. So totally new business model. And I spoke to the vice president for BMW, the VP for mobility strategy. And he said, we didn't see them coming. Suddenly, so within just a few years, everyone was Ubering. And now the big mobile companies are working on their own share driving and Drive Now and Share Now and what they're all called, because they're seeing that mobility is no longer about just having a car, but how the car is utilized. So maybe once in the future, there might not even be, that people own a car and there's only mobility programs that you put a lease into. Yeah, so Uber came and had a business model that just blew everyone away, and they became very, very big. Uber yourself, get that really cool idea to replace your own business before someone else does it. Before you get Kodak, if you remember, and many don't because they're hardly visible today, but Kodak was one of the biggest companies worldwide providing films for cameras. And when digital photography started to come more and more, they kind of started looking at it, but decided that was not the future, which, everyone with mobile phone here knows that was not a smart decision, because today digital photography is everywhere. And if a different decision at the time had been made, they probably would still be around today, providing technologies for photography enhancements, etc., that other companies are doing now. So they still exist, but they do very specialized films for, I think, X-rays and chemicals. Here's another saying, and that is Nintendo yourself before you get Thomas cooked. Nintendo. Today, it's a gaming company, high tech. Everyone knows the brand and logo. If you've got kids, they're playing Mario Kart, and it's seen as a high tech company. Did you know that they were founded 1889? They are more than 100 years old, which is amazing how they managed. At 1889, they were founded as a gaming company with gaming cards. And today they're a high-tech company because they kept playing at the front and reinventing themselves and going into the latest technology, and therefore is now still around from all these companies, over 100 years old. And the other example here, and my last before I go to the slide and then to the questions, Thomas Cook, one of the biggest travel agency chains in the world, who unfortunately went into insolvency just a couple of years ago. When people started online booking, they noticed that they were losing business. So the strategy, as far as I have understood, that they followed at the time, and the decisions was, we need more travel agencies, we need more franchise, so that we can get more business. And today, if they instead had at the time decided, let's be really at the front there with the booking portals that we know, booking.com, hotels.com, everyone probably have heard about them. There probably would have been a, cooked.com or something today that would be the place to go to, because they had the relationships with the airlines, with the hotels, they had the itineraries and a whole global network. And they would have needed to do digital transformation to put that into the cloud and be one of the top players today. So I hope that as a philosophy makes sense, in saying why we are doing this at the workplace level and doing digital transformation at the company level is to sustain, be competitive, and get the right people so that our companies can move into the future. So the last point for today, the new normal. Well, when I need to work, I don't go to work. I don't go to the office because I don't have time to work when I go to work. I collaborate. So for me and for many others and companies and customers and partners that I speak to, their workplace has become a meet place. You go there to meet with people. You go there because you had certain technology that helps you in your daily work with other people. For example, collaboration tools like whiteboards and meeting rooms and hybrid technology for calls for people that are not in the office. So you go in there to collaborate more than just go in, sit and work and go home again, because you can do that from home and have more flexibility with your family life and your work life. And taking that a step further is, if it's a meet place, or a meeting place, it means that offices need to change because they need to provide an environment that supports collaboration, meeting rooms and sofas and here, restaurant, pizza, pasta, places where people can meet and collaborate. That's different from just having big offices with loads of desks with cubicles, right? Which means that you have to refurbish and change the actual workspaces. And on top of that, moving forward, people are probably in some way not going to go and do the same shopping as they did before. I'll give you an example from the car business. If you want to buy a car, 30 years ago, you had to go to a car dealer and you looked at cars. And they were different. There were small, middle, and large size models and the colors, and you had to look at them. And you decided which one you wanted. If you went to BMW first and that was maybe too expensive, you had to go to Fiat afterwards and you had to walk around. Today, the behavior when you're buying is that you go online and you do a car configurator. So you can basically configure your car, your dream car, with the functionalities you need without ever going to a car dealership. But if you do that for the look and feel, it's still needed to showcase the general products, even if exactly your car, you're not going to drive it off the car dealership. You're going to maybe look, feel, touch, check the colors, almost like an interactive environment where you can 3D change things, etc., and have a look at them and then decide and configure your car. So you still need to showcase product because there's a lot of things we don't want to buy without having had touch them and smell them and get a feeling for what the quality is that you are getting. But more and more purchasing of important things is going to move online too, which means that companies are not going to have stores with hundreds of their products, but more showcase. Go look, try clothes on, get your size, you order it, and then you get the package delivered a day later to your home, for example, if we're talking about fashion retail. So big shifts happening there, from workplace to a meeting place to a showcase. So I hope that makes sense on where we're going, looking back, looking forward, and exactly at time here also to start the questions. I just spoken for 29 minutes, which is good. So why don't we see if there are any questions in the chat, or if you want to speak up, feel free.
Hi, Anna.
Hello.
I have one question. What are your thoughts on the hours of working, especially since all of us are working from home?
That's a very interesting question. So we at Microsoft, we have some solutions and thoughts about that are very new, because working from home and working in the office, it's hybrid work. And very often companies are focusing on the workplace, so meeting rooms and equipment and so on, to get a great experience, Star Trek command center kind of place, and then forget that at home, the experience at home is usually worse than if you're with people in a room anyway. So focusing just as much on both sides of the hybrid work. What's the meeting room experience, but what's the experience at home? Making sure people are equipped But for example, so video tools like this ones, they need to be much more efficient, multiple screens so that you can see the slides plus the audience plus the chat and so on, and keeping a better manage on that. I'll give you one example how we did it with Teams. And it was when you raised hand to say something. Well, if you were presenting mode like I am now with my slides here, I wouldn't see the raised hand. So someone else always keep an eye, you heard this, keep an eye on the chat, yeah, to pull people out. So we had to change that. So now when someone raises hands, there's a quick, hoovering hand. So you say, oh, someone wants to say something. And if there's a chat, it quickly, you can switch this on and off. There's quickly a window with the chat message at the top, and then it blends off again. Changes in the tool to make sure that both sides can work really efficiently together. And then there's the third workplace that is even more forgotten, which is when you're going from A to B, the mobile workspace. When you're in the car at the airport, you're waiting at the doctor's for your appointment, or you're standing in front of the school to pick up your kids, and etc. And very often the mobile, because you have a smaller screen, if the tool is exactly the same, just on a smaller screen, it's really hard to get to the, to mute, demute, get the functionalities that you need. And even just getting connected is a pain. So for example, having mobile mode, which is a simplified view, giving you only the functionalities you really need when you're on the go. You usually don't use the chat so much when you're in the car, obviously, but you want to raise hands, you want to like things, and you want to mute and demute in a very comfortable way. So those are the three working spaces: office, home, and in between.
That's very enlightening, Anna. I have one more question. Your ideas on a company that's been always doing paperwork, how would they transform digitally now? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's somewhere that's one of these things where a lot of companies are on that journey, realizing they at some point have to do that. It depends on the culture in the market and how mature a country is, of course, and where the companies are. But to be very honest, this is something that needs starting. On one hand, if you need history, you need to start scanning those documents. And moving to a platform, I think the most important thing is to have a very clear view of what papers are the most workload heavy going in and out. Is it invoicing, for example? So many countries stop, because that's where it comes with, oh, I want my money fast. So if I move to a digital invoicing system, I can send it and the customer within 1 second has my invoice, meaning the payment can come in easier and faster. So starting with the things where you have a great value for yourself, by moving to there's existing invoicing systems, email, of course, for communication and correspondence and so on. I know there will be faxes in people's lives for a few more years. But here comes what I said before, and it's a nice way of really putting it. You can also not do anything, but someone else will. And at some point, the ease of doing business, we call it EDB, ease of doing business, is going to be better with someone else, your competition, that is digitalized and flexible, and people are going to go to them for business, and you're gonna lose customers. Now, long-term customers, at some point, as loyal as they are and how great your service is, they also, and these are my last words here, maybe, they also have to do more with less. They have the same issue as you. And at some point, even if they are loyal and love you and think your service is great, at some point they will be forced to do more with less and say, we need to go with this company. They are cheaper because they have digitalized the procurement and supply chain and makes it easier for me to do business. So I save my resources. They don't have to do a lot of things. They just go in, click, and the order's placed and I get the invoice. And that's the reality of the world. It's the competitive edge and people. Those are the two things.
Thank you, Anna, for those tips. And we will be closing here. Thank you so much for joining us.